Hello, this is Dr. Mewborn, and this is History of the Baptist. Today we're in Lesson 31, and we are talking about Baptists in the South. And so we know that in 1845 there was a separation between the Baptists in the North and the South when the Baptists created the SBC, also known as Southern Baptist Convention. And so that's what we're going to be focusing in on a little bit today is the South side of things. And so let's go ahead and jump into that. We've looked at this slide before in the past, and we've talked about events that led up to this division or sectional division. And we talked about 1830 to 33, pressure from Baptists to be anti-slavery. Then 1834, Triennial Convention responds by saying, we just want to be neutral in this matter. But in 1835, anti-slavery Baptists respond saying this is wrong, what's taking place. And then in 1840, formation of American Baptist Anti-Slavery Convention. So all this stuff is leading up to a true break in the sense that a group of people from the South want to create their own convention, and they want to do things their own way. And that's what will happen in 1845, and that enters in the Southern Baptist Convention. And so Baptists in the South, on May 10th, 1845, the SBC launched two mission programs that would rival other mission programs at the time. Number one, Foreign Mission Board, headquarters in Richmond, Virginia. It's called the Foreign Mission Board for a long period of time, and today we call it the International Mission Board of Southern Baptist Convention, also known as what we say is the IMB. But it started out as the Foreign Mission Board, doing tremendous work, but then for several years it just couldn't overcome the debt that it was in. And so early on in the 20th century, there was a changeover, and then we have what we call the International Mission Board that emerged, and a lot of great things came out of that. Also what we call the Cooperative Program. And so that's a lot of what we're talking about with Foreign Mission Board. Same group of people that was started back in 1845 and then rebranded themselves and created the IMB. Also, domestic missions were a very big deal, also known as the Home Mission Board, located in Marion, Alabama at the time. And the Home Mission Board was focusing more on what's going on in America, especially what's going on in the South. And they saw that it was a big part of their focus is to help the churches that are in America. Now, as we continue on talking about Foreign Mission Board, the first major mission fields that we talk about in the Southern Baptists, with the Southern Baptists, was China. And so that was a major mission field for many of the Southern Baptists for a period of time, along with other places. J. Lewis and Henrietta Shuck were the first Baptist missionaries in that land. Here's a book about Henrietta Hall Shuck, first American woman missionary in China, of course, and her husband. And so you can see these books that talk about the lives of these people that really were pioneers during that time. Edmonia, I believe is how you say her name, Moon, Lottie Moon's younger sister, was appointed to Tingchao, China in 1872. Her older sister would soon follow her in 1873. And so Lottie Moon was to go to China in that period of time. That kind of brings us to talk about a little bit about Lottie Moon, what we call the Lottie Moon, sometimes Christmas offering. And why is that? She lived from 1840 to 1912. Here's a picture here. What's interesting is she is a very tiny person. She's just little over 4 feet tall, around maybe 4'3", 4'2", very tiny person. But starting out in her life, she was just a tiny but strong-headed person that didn't want to do anything that people asked her to do for the most part, especially when it involved religion. She didn't want to have anything to do with religion for much of her life until an amazing conversion took place with her. Well, she became a missionary to China with the Foreign Mission Board, spent nearly 40 years of her life living and working in China. And we see that's taking place when she was 33 years old. She goes there. You can see the numbers there. And then teacher and evangelist. She laid a foundation for traditionally solid support for missions among Southern Baptist, especially through the Women's Missionary Union, or the WMU as we sometimes call it. But she was a true missionary at heart, very good with languages, and just had a gift and a calling on her life to do that kind of mission work in China. And so, amazing story with Lottie Moon, something worth knowing about when we talk about the Lottie Moon Christmas offering, especially as that's going out to the International Mission Board and helping missionaries are so much around the world. Now, Baptist life in the late 1800s. In 1854, and we're going to jump around a little bit in the 1800s because there's a lot going on. There's the Foreign Mission Board, there's the Home Mission Board, a lot of things. And so bear with me as we walk through some of these slides. In 1854, the Home Missionary Society, which was the Northern Society, established the Church Edifice Fund. This was to help churches build meeting houses. Okay, now that's interesting because this is coming from the North, right? Home Missionary Society held loans for the churches, but many of them could not pay off the balance. Once one loan amount was forgiven, other churches expected the same. In 1882, over 2,500 houseless churches were among the Baptists. And so what was happening is that the Home Mission Society is still trying to work in the lives of people in the South. And through this time, it was unique because they were helping. They created funds. They were trying to build these churches, and it's this idea that these churches didn't have walls. I found this, a church without walls. Well, they didn't have walls, but they wanted walls so badly, and so they were trying to help them with this. But it became problematic for many or this fund and many in the HMS or Home Mission Society as they were trying to develop this type of stuff, and it just did not work out very well. Entering the Civil War caused many congregants to abandon their church homes. Buildings were left to ruin. In many cases, the abandoned meeting houses were converted into stables, hospitals, and storehouses. Some were broken down for firewood. Adding to the frustration, the HMS, Northern Baptist, re-entered the South in hopes of helping the Christians in need. So that's what we're seeing take place, which was just a sad state of affairs because they're trying to help, but what's happening is it's causing issues in the South. And so churches are being left to become anything and everything else but a church house or meeting house. And then the HMS is frustrating Southern Baptists because they're trying to enter in to help Christians in need. All types of things are going on during this time, which just did not lend itself. This would have been a picture. This is a Manual Baptist church during Civil War. This would have been a perfect example of the type of churches that would have been around at that time. And many of them became hospitals or stables or storehouses and things like that. Now, with the Civil War came a new or a change in population because this was the abolition of slavery. And so with that, there was a huge freed population that many people didn't know how to incorporate maybe into society, but at the same time, they may not have known what to do. And so there was a big change in things. Physical and spiritual needs were overwhelming to many pastors in the South, about 4 million people that they were looking at trying to care for. And so many pastors who rightly saw an opportunity here to minister to these freed people now, they were trying to come up with resources to do it, and it was a struggle for them. Political turmoil, economic devastation, sharecropping, and poor health care were facts in the post-war South. This was, after the war, there was a newness of everything in the South, and now they're trying to figure out, what do we do with this population now that is the culture has changed. And so there was a lot of great efforts that were made, and some of them were not as good. They just they were not able to go the full way that they needed to go. Most African American Christians became Baptists at the time because the Baptists were doing an excellent job trying to reach out to them and to pour into them and love them. And here would be a picture kind of African American Christians becoming a Baptist or being a part of a Baptist church there. And they also had black congregations in Georgia area after the Civil War, and so this would have been a picture of some of those. All right. As we continue on, we talk about working with freedmen. And what does this look like? Well, in 1863, the HMS established the Freedmen's Fund. And this fund helped evangelize and support the educational work to freed Southern blacks. Many of the black congregants left their churches to form predominantly black churches in the South. And what happens in this is that these people are joining together for ministry, but a lot of them needed help with education. A lot of them needed help understanding. And so certain people, such as we've talked about in the past, Joanna P. Moore, she would have been a person, for example, that would have gone in and helped people in the South with types of training and working with the women, working also trying to set up schools, trying to work with the children to develop an education system for these people. And so there's training schools for freed peoples in the South that would have been set up for that type of thing. Also, the HMS established a string of black colleges throughout the South. By 1894, the society helped sponsor 32 schools with 177 teachers and 5,357 pupils. 432 were ministerial students. Among those, Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, and Bishop College in Marshall, Texas, were among those thriving schools. And so here's a picture here of Morehouse College, and that's the place, or that's one of the places that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. actually attended and graduated from. Very, very amazing. And so as we continue on, we're going to look at the response of the SBC. And what does this mean? Well, after the Civil War, during the Civil War and after the Civil War, there was, with the Home Missionary Society coming in, there were some struggles, some issues that needed to be dealt with. And so with that, the Southern Baptists became very territorial after the Civil War. They did not like the overreach of the Home Mission Society, and it became an issue. I think this is a great cartoon here. It's this whole idea of this little girl saying, pretty much, if you think you're going to get one of my toys, you got another thing coming. And she is serious about that. And so very territorial about that. Virginia Baptists actually encouraged their churches to offer no support to the mission work of the Northern Baptists. They strongly urged them to refuse any form of fellowship or cooperation with the HMS. They said, no, you do not help them. That is not one of the things that we need to be doing. And then we get to this. We've talked about this a little bit before about what was going on, but now let's kind of talk about domestic missions, because in that number 2 spot there, also known as the Home Mission Board, and what was taking place on American soil, because that was a very important thing. So look at the Sunday School Board in this slide here. In 1891, we had to see the Sunday School Board taking its current form as we see it today. But before that, there was a lot of different things that were going on with the Sunday School Board. Between 1845 to 1851, Southerners wanted to completely break from the Northern teachings and major influences such as theology schools. They wanted their own publications. So in 1859, the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary was formed in Greenville, North Carolina. Many of the Sunday school publications came directly from its professors. And so what was happening there in Greenville, North Carolina, it brought forth a lot of influence that went into what we call today, or call at that time, Sunday School Board. John Broadus and Basil Manley started a publication company named Broadman Press, a division of the Sunday School Board to this very day. This is John A. Broadus, and throughout the history of preaching. He was, of course, a professor, and not of the Southern Baptist Convention, or I'm sorry, the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. He was also the second president of the seminary, and he was a professor there, of course. But he was known for talking and collecting great histories of preaching. And so some of the books that he has presented and brought forth to Christian history have been some of the main sources that people go to know about preaching and those types of things. And so very important figure here, and that's where we get the Broadman Press name from, which I think is pretty fascinating in itself. Okay, anyways, let's stop there. So good to be with you today. This has been Lesson 31, Baptist in the South, and hope you have a great rest of the day. We'll talk to you soon. God bless you. Bye-bye.